Ancient Greece had a lot of myths of heroes blessed by the gods. From Hercules to Perseus, these stories talk about the valor and bravery of heroes who conquered the unthinkable. One such is the story of Theseus. The son of two fathers, one a god and the other a king, Theseus was destined for greatness from the very night he was conceived. He grew up to become a hero of renowned strength, facing many trials, with the most famous being the Minotaur. This is the story of Theseus and how he conquered the fearsome Minotaur. The birth of Theseus and early years. Aegeus, one of the legendary kings of ancient Athens, yearned for an heir to continue his noble lineage. Seeking guidance, he made a pilgrimage to the renowned Oracle of Delphi, the revered seer whose words were considered divine prophecy. The oracle's response was cryptic. "Do not uncork the wineskin until you have reached the heights of Athens, lest you be consumed by sorrow." Perplexed by this enigmatic advice, Aegeus departed Delphi crestfallen. Seeking counsel, Aegeus turned to his trusted host, Theseus, the wise and benevolent ruler of Troezen. Theseus, blessed with wisdom, immediately grasped the meaning behind the oracle's riddle. He devised a cunning plan to ply Aegeus with copious amounts of wine until he was thoroughly intoxicated, and then offer him the hand of his own daughter, the fair Aethra, in carnal union. However, Aethra was no mere mortal maiden, for she had been visited by the goddess Athena in a prophetic dream. Heeding Athena's divine instructions, Aethra quietly slipped away from her slumbering bridegroom and waded across the tranquil waters to the nearby island of Sphaeria. There, under the cloak of night, she performed sacred libations to Spharos, the legendary charioteer of Pelops, and to the mighty Poseidon, lord of the seas. In that mystical instant, Aethra was possessed by Poseidon himself, the overwhelming power of the sea god coursing through her veins. This celestial mingling bestowed upon Aethra's unborn child a remarkable duality, a fusion of divine and mortal essence that would shape the hero's destiny. Such a blending of immortal and human parentage was a hallmark of many legendary Greek heroes. As Aethra's womb grew with the child, Aegeus resolved to return to his kingdom in Athens. Yet before his departure, he concealed his sword and sandals beneath a massive boulder, instructing Aethra that if their son proved heroic enough to move the colossal stone, he should claim these tokens as proof of his royal heritage. In Athens, Aegeus was reunited with the formidable Medea, the sorceress who had fled Corinth after slaughtering the children she bore to Jason. She became Aegeus's consort, her dark powers casting an ominous shadow over the realm. Thus Theseus was raised in his mother's land of Troezen, unaware of his noble Athenian lineage. As he blossomed into a strapping young man, his prodigious strength enabled him to dislodge the massive boulder and recover his father's concealed relics. It was then that Aethra revealed the truth. That Aegeus was his father, and that he must journey to Athens, bearing the sword and sandals as proof of his birthright. The path to Athens presented two choices: the safe maritime route or the treacherous overland trail skirting the perilous Saronic Gulf, where 6 gateways to the underworld awaited, each guarded by a formidable chthonic foe. Brimming with youthful courage and ambition, Theseus boldly chose to traverse the hazardous land route alone, vanquishing numerous bandits and emerging victorious from each harrowing encounter. In the island kingdom of Crete, the formidable King Minos engaged in a bitter war of succession against his own brother, vying for the coveted throne. Emerging victorious through cunning and might, Minos exiled his defeated sibling and turned his devotion to the mighty Poseidon, the celestial lord of the seas. To cement his rightful claim to the Cretan monarchy, Minos offered a sacred plea to Poseidon to present him with a magnificent snow-white bull as a divine sign of approval. The sea god obliged, and when the majestic beast emerged from the frothing waves, its lustrous coat glistened like driven snow in the Cretan sun. However, Minos' hubris proved his undoing, for upon beholding the breathtaking creature, he was overcome by pride and greed. Ignoring Poseidon's decree to sacrifice the sacred bull, Minos selfishly chose to keep the beautiful animal for himself. Enraged by this irreverent defiance, Poseidon exacted a perverse punishment upon the arrogant king. Through the sea, God's twisted sorcery, Minos' wife Pasiphaë was consumed by an unnatural, all-consuming lust for the bull. Her depravity knew no bounds, and in a forbidden union of woman and beast, she submitted to carnal relations with the magnificent creature. From this unholy coupling was born a hellish aberration, a grotesque hybrid with the head and tail of a bull, yet cursed with a formidably muscled humanoid body. This abominable offspring, dubbed the Minotaur, was initially nurtured by its deranged mother, Pasiphaë. But as the beast matured, its violent, untamed nature became increasingly apparent and uncontrollable. Fearing for the safety of his kingdom, Minos summoned the ingenious architect Daedalus and commanded him to construct an immense labyrinthine prison, an intricate, meandering maze housed within the very bowels of the royal palace itself. Into this shadowy, twisting hell, the dreaded Minotaur was confined, condemned to roam its endless corridors in tormented isolation. The jarring bellow of the fearsome Minotaur echoed through the labyrinth's gloomy halls, a soul-trembling reminder of the unholy penalties that arose from affronting the immortal gods. Yet even in its unearthly prison, the foul hybrid's bloodlust could not be sated, eagerly awaiting the sacrificial youths who would be condemned to confront its savage might. Theseus and the Minotaur. Among King Minos' offspring was his eldest son, the noble and courageous Androgeus. Renowned for his prowess in athletic games, Androgeus set sail from the shores of Crete to Athens, intent on competing in the prestigious Panathenaic festival. Held once every 4 years, these hallowed games celebrated the birthright of the Athenians and the honored patronage of their revered goddess, Athena. In the festive arenas of Athens, Androgeus' formidable skills shone like a beacon. He swept through event after event, triumphing over the city's mightiest competitors with seemingly effortless grace. The crowds roared their admiration, captivated by the young prince's remarkable feats of speed, strength, and agility. However, such admiration soon curdled into bitter resentment among a clique of local Athenian youths known as the Pallantides. Consumed by envious rage at this interloping foreigner's celebrated exploits, the Pallantides conspired to commit the unthinkable. They treacherously assassinated the unsuspecting Androgeus, snuffing out his bright life in a cowardly act of violence. When news of this heinous act reached Minos in distant Crete, the emperor's wrath knew no bounds. He commanded his vast naval armadas to set sail, descending upon Athens in a furious assault. Confronting King Aegeus, Minos demanded the assassins be surrendered to face draconian justice, vowing to reduce the city to smoldering ruins if his edict was defied. However, Aegeus did not know the identities of Androgeus' murderers, and in his desperation, he abjectly surrendered dominion over all of Athens to the vengeful Cretan king. Minos' brutal retribution was enacted swiftly. He decreed that with the completion of every great year cycle on the Athenian solar calendar, a most horrific tribute must be rendered. 7 of Athens' bravest young men and 7 of its most beautiful maidens were to be selected and delivered in chains to the island of Crete, reportedly to be sacrificed to the dreaded Minotaur. That grotesque, man-eating horror spawned from an unholy union between Minos' wife and a bull. When the 3rd cycle of sacrifice loomed, the valorous prince Theseus stepped forward, offering himself as one of the accursed tributes destined for the dread labyrinth's halls. He boarded the ill-fated vessel under billowing black sails, yet audaciously vowed to his father Aegeus that upon his triumphant return as the Minotaur's slayer, the ship's sails would be pure white, symbolizing the conquered terror. Though stripped of weapons upon his arrival on Crete, Theseus's bravery and determination burned ferociously. It was then that fate intervened, when Princess Ariadne, the daughter of the merciless King Minos himself, was captivated by Theseus's noble bearing. Heeding the guidance of Daedalus the architect, Ariadne provided the young hero with a crucial boon, a stout ball of thread to unwind and retrace his path from the labyrinth's convoluted heart. With Ariadne's clandestine aid securing his means of escape, Theseus solemnly vowed that should he survive his confrontation with the Minotaur, he would whisk her away from Crete as his rescued bride. The Labyrinth. Under the velvet curtain of night, the bewitched Princess Ariadne guided Theseus through the shadowed palace corridors and into the ominous maw of the labyrinth's entrance. As the heroic prince crossed the threshold into that sunless realm of snaking passages, he swiftly secured one end of Ariadne's vital thread to the stone doorpost. Though his weapons had been confiscated by the Cretan guards, Theseus had cleverly concealed a sturdy bronze sword within the folds of his tunic. He grasped its familiar hilt, drawing strength from its comforting presence as he descended into the unknown depths. Recalling Daedalus's instructed strategy, Theseus remained ever vigilant, senses sharp, meticulously unwinding the lifeline of thread with one hand while brandishing his blade in the other. He strode forward with purposeful steps, adhering to the prescribed path of always venturing inward and downward, never deviating to the left or right, lest he become hopelessly ensnared in the maze's cryptic, fractal geometry. Awful odors of dank earth, stale air, and an acrid reek of some foul animal musk hidden in the claustrophobic confines. Theseus's labored breaths echoed hollowly, mingling with the steady cadence of his footfalls and the distant, unmistakable snufflings of the Minotaur's brutal breathing. An ominous chorus of slithering and skittering presences, unseen vermin temporarily roused by his attention, surrounded him in those pitch-black shadows. At length, the unraveled thread led Theseus to the abyssal heart of the labyrinth. There, in the wavering gold pools cast by his flickering torch, the grotesque silhouette of the Minotaur came into nightmarish focus. A hulking, corpulent amalgam of man and bull presided over a sprawling pile of broken bones, trophies of its countless previous victims. The creature's snout flared wide, nostrils sundering the ripe charnel reek before it let out a deafening bellow of slavering hunger. Thick ropes of spittle lashed from its slavering mouth as the Minotaur reared up on trunk-like legs, deadly horns aimed to disembowel. In that terrifying instant, beast and man traded blows across a span of endless eons, one the spawn of blasphemous union and dark sorceries, the other a bold flower blooming from the elevated bloodlines of heroes and gods. Theseus met the Minotaur's furious charge with a defiant war cry, his blade parrying the monster's goring horns as their titanic battle joined. They grappled in the gloom, all pretenses of strategy abandoned in a primal rut of tearing claws, snapping jaws. Scorpion stingers whipsawed from the Minotaur's tail, narrowly missing Theseus's face as he twisted away. He hacked viciously at the beast's shaggy flanks until ichor sprayed, maddening it further with his taunts and battle-calming chivalry. Exploiting a fleeting overextension, Theseus ducked inside the Minotaur's guard, jamming his blade up through the tender, undefended flesh where its jaw hinged. The hilt smashed against serrated teeth as he drove the full length of steel into the base of the creature's skull. With a last piteous moan, the Minotaur crumpled to the cavern floor, its blood pooling all over. Theseus wasted no time in severing the Minotaur's bull-horned head as proof of his conquest. Clutching his grisly trophy, he swiftly followed the unbroken thread's path back through the Cyclopean masonry, emerging triumphant into the moonlit Cretan evening. The victorious Athenian youth, along with the other condemned sacrifices, were quickly assembled to quit these accursed shores under cover of darkness, with the besotted Princess Ariadne whisked away at Theseus's side. Theseus's betrayal of Ariadne. Though Theseus had succeeded in killing the Minotaur and freeing the Athenian sacrifices, he committed a dishonorable act on the journey home. Ariadne, the Cretan princess whose help was crucial in navigating the labyrinth, suffered a terrible betrayal at Theseus's hands. Despite swearing to marry Ariadne after she risked everything to aid him, Theseus mercilessly abandoned her when their ship stopped on the island of Naxos. Under cover of night, Theseus left Ariadne alone on the shore while she slept and departed on his boat. When Ariadne awoke and realized Theseus had cast her aside to fend for herself, she was devastated. Her anguished cries echoed across the island as Theseus's ship disappeared over the horizon. Ariadne had given up her home and royal status for a man who shamelessly broke his vow to her. However, Ariadne's tragic story took an unexpected turn when the god Dionysus took pity on her plight. Enchanted by her beauty, Dionysus swept in and rescued the distraught princess from her deserted fate on Naxos. He fell in love with Ariadne and made her his immortal wife on Mount Olympus. As a reward, Dionysus arranged for Ariadne's shining crown to be memorialized as a constellation in the night. Sky, forever honoring her resilience in the face of Theseus's unforgivable betrayal. So while Theseus returned to Athens in glory, Ariadne found herself elevated to divine status alongside the gods themselves, escaping the cruel injustice Theseus committed against her. The return of Theseus to Athens and the death of Aegeus. On the way back, Theseus was meant to hoist fresh white sails, signaling to his anxious father Aegeus that he still lived and was returning victorious. However, amid the chaos of their frantic departure and Ariadne's rapturous company, Theseus neglected this crucial signal in his distraction. And so it was that when the ship's dim silhouette appeared on the horizon, creeping towards the Athenian coast under its original ominous black sails, Aegeus could only assume the worst, that his brave son had perished facing the terrible Minotaur. The aging king had maintained an eternal vigil atop Cape Sunium's towering sea cliffs, anxiously scanning the horizon in hope of that promised white sail signaling Theseus's glorious return. But on that fateful day, as the ebbing tide crashed against the boneyard rocks far below, all Aegeus could see through his tear-blurred eyes was the funereal black canvas, limping ever closer. His heart, utterly shattered by the certainty of his only son's grisly demise in Crete's blood-soaked labyrinth, Aegeus's final gesture was one of abject despair. Without hope nor reason to linger in this cruel world, the heartbroken king cast himself from the dizzying precipice, plunging hundreds of feet down to be dashed upon the unforgiving rocks and swallowed by the merciless brine forever. It was only after this needless tragedy that the crestfallen Theseus at last realized his grievous mistake. Torn between the ecstasy of his trial's success and the unspeakable grief over his beloved father's self-inflicted sacrifice, he watched in numb horror as Aegeus's lifeless body was slowly borne away on the tide's current. From that day forward, to forever commemorate this senseless loss, the vast saltwater expanse surrounding Cape Sunium's fateful cliffs became known as the Aegean Sea, a lasting memorial to the ill-fated king's final lament. Forevermore, the waters would embrace Aegeus's restless shade, eternally reminding all sailors of the perils that await those who tempt the fickle fates in that unforgiving domain where Theseus's own mythic saga reached its devastating climax.